We often grab a pill without really thinking about it, right? We trust it to take care of a headache or manage a condition. But what if some of the most common medicines out there carry a serious hidden risk to one of our most important organs? Well, today, we're going to open up that medicine cabinet and take a hard look at the medications that can actually damage your liver. Okay, let's just dive right in with a question for you. What do you think is the single biggest cause of acute liver failure across the entire globe? Seriously, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Maybe some super powerful prescription drug? Or maybe something illegal? The crazy thing is, the answer is probably something you have in your house right now. Something you might think is completely, totally harmless. And that's what makes this so surprising and honestly so important for every single one of us to know. And there it is, acetaminophen. You might know it as paracetamol. Yep, that go-to over-the-counter pill for headaches, fevers, and aches and pains is the #1 cause of sudden acute liver failure worldwide. It's a little shocking, isn't it? So that leads to a pretty big question. How can something so ordinary, so common, be so dangerous? Let's unpack exactly why acetaminophen has earned this really unfortunate title. And I really want to be clear about the scale we're talking about here. This isn't some rare one in a million side effect. We are talking about the single most common reason for a person's liver to suddenly just stop working. That's a statistic that really makes you stop and think. So, how does this even happen? It's actually a pretty simple but pretty brutal process. See, when you take acetaminophen, your liver uses this stuff called glutathione to break it down safely. But here's the kicker. Your liver only has so much glutathione on hand. If you take too much acetaminophen and overdose, you completely burn through those natural safety reserves. And once they're gone, a toxic byproduct builds up and just starts destroying your liver cells. But hey, acetaminophen isn't the only bad guy in this story. There are several other common medications that can also put major stress on the liver. The medical term for it is hepatotoxicity, which is just a fancy way of saying toxic to the liver. So let's take a look at some of the other accomplices. First up on the list are certain antibiotics. Really common ones like amoxicillin clavulanate, and even some heavy hitters used for things like tuberculosis, isoniazid, and rifampin. They're all known to cause liver stress in some people. And it's not always for the same reason. Sometimes it's direct toxicity, other times it's more like an allergic reaction inside the liver. All right, next on our list, statins. I'm sure you've heard of these. If you or anyone you know is dealing with high cholesterol, these drugs are everywhere. Millions of people are prescribed them, but yep, they can also have an effect on the liver. And this is a really, really important distinction to make. With statins, what doctors usually see is a rise in liver enzymes. It's a sign of some stress or inflammation for sure, but actual massive liver failure, that's really rare. It's a completely different kind of risk compared to acetaminophen, which, as we know, is the leading cause of that sudden, catastrophic type of failure. And the third group we need to talk about is anti-seizure medications. Some of the well-known ones like carbamazepine and phenytoin, they come with a known risk of liver toxicity. But as we're about to see, there's one in this group that really stands out from the pack. Yeah, the source material puts a huge red flag on valproic acid, calling it a big one. And they are not exaggerating. We're not just talking about your liver enzymes going up a little bit here. This medication can, in some people, cause severe, life-threatening liver failure. That is absolutely critical information for anyone taking it. Okay, so we've named some of the culprits, but this doesn't mean that everyone who takes one of these drugs is going to have a liver problem. Not at all. The real question is, when does that risk become a real-life threat? What are the things that push a helpful medicine over the edge? So here's the thing. Context is everything. The risk just skyrockets with an overdose. That's the #1 cause, hands down. But it's also made much worse by interactions with other drugs you might be taking, or if you already have a liver condition. And sometimes it just comes down to your own individual biology. Knowing these risk factors is really the key to using these medicines safely. All right, we have covered a lot of ground here, from the top offender to its accomplices and the risk factors. So what's the bottom line? If there's one thing you absolutely have to remember from all of this, what is it? This is it. This is the takeaway. Acetaminophen is the undisputed champ when it comes to causing acute liver failure. But it's not alone. Other really common drugs can also harm the liver. And the biggest danger for pretty much all of them is taking too much. And that kind of leaves us with one final parting thought. A question for you, really. It's simple, but it's so important. It's not just about what you take, but how much you take. Knowing that limit and respecting it is your single best line of defense for protecting your liver.